But she's your daughter. You tell her to sell them. I won't, I said. But I do have a plan. My daughter was the only one sensible enough to bring sunglasses, right? So this is what we do. She wears her glasses. The rest of us cover our faces with our t-shirt or whatever and hold hands in a line, and she goes at the front and leads us to the flag. They were all quiet for a moment, and then Samson once said, "That's actually a good plan." "I used it last time I was in the desert," I said, which was true. I used it to get a bunch of night elves out of the labyrinth of light. Monsieur Martinet said it was a good idea too, but he wanted Max to be the one with the glasses, because Max is a natural leader. "Maybe so," said Florida, "but the thing is, they're my glasses. Let's go." So we set off in this conga line across the desert while Monsieur Martinet shouted encouraging words about other people who had crossed deserts. "Mark Antony," he said, "and Lawrence of Arabia, they were humans. We are humans. Humans can do this." It takes communication to keep walking forward over soft sand when you're blindfolded, so nobody spoke for a while. But there was a moment when everyone stopped and thought the same thing. It was the moment when we stepped out of the shadow. You didn't need to wonder what had happened. It was like someone had pointed a flamethrower at us. I remembered that Lawrence of Arabia and Mark Antony had walked across deserts with great big armies, not with a couple of kids and their dads. And also that by the time they finished, their armies were a lot smaller. And then the wind dropped, and at last we could open our eyes and see where we were. And that was bad news too. We were standing at the bottom of a massive sand dune. 100-foot hill of slippy sand. You could see the wind stripping streamers of sand from the top of it. When Hassan saw the dune, he started crying, "Do we have to go up there? I can't go up there. It's too high." Monsieur Martinet seemed to see this as a challenge, but not for him, for Max. "Max," he barked, "run up the dune and see if you can see the flag." Max looked shocked. "Why me?" "Max," yelled Monsieur Martinet, "winners lead from the front." "But," said Max, "do as I say. This is a question of discipline." And Max set off up the dune all on his own, looking really, really miserable in the soft sand. Hassan Xanadu sat down. "I'm not going up that," he said, "even if there are 1,000 flags on the other side." Eddie said, "My dear Hassan doesn't want to climb it. We must go around." Samson too thought this was not a good idea. Dr. Drax told us to follow the line of the shadow. If we veer off, we might never find it again. This is a wind drift dune. Such dunes can be many miles long, perhaps even 20 or 30. 20 or 30 miles sounded bad, but climbing that dune looked impossible. Max was up to his knees in sand. "I can't do it," he yelled. He sounded like he was going to cry. Monsieur Martinet looked uncomfortable. Even he didn't fancy it. "Let's go around," he said. "In a barren landscape like this," said Samson too, "it is difficult to keep your bearings." "Difficult," said Monsieur Martinet, "is what the best do best. Max!" But Dr. Drax said, pleaded Samson too. "Dr. Drax expects us to use our initiative," snapped Monsieur Martinet. "Initiative is how winners win." I was going to say, yes, and getting lost in deserts is how people die. But they'd already set off, even Samson's 1 and 2. Monsieur Martinet really did have impressive leadership qualities. The dune reminded me of my dad. Sometimes if he finished work early in the summer, he used to go down to the beach and do dune diving. Have you ever done this? You scramble up a dune, then you just chuck yourself off and run, with the sand giving way beneath you, and your stride getting longer and longer until your legs are barely touching the ground, so it feels like you're falling, but it doesn't matter because the sand is so soft. It's nature's own thrill ride. Before I even knew I'd decided to do it, I'd joined Max halfway up the dune. I said to him, "Are you ready for this?" "What?" "Dune diving. Come on, you must have done it before. Give me your hand." Looking a bit nervous, he gave me his hand. I said, "Ready?" "What for?" "This." I jumped. Gobi Desert sand is even softer than Southport sand. At one point I sank right in to my knees. The next step, half the dune seemed to just disappear underneath me. As we hit the bottom, the others scattered out of our way like skittles, and the two of us lay there staring up at the blue sky and laughing our heads off. Monsieur Martinet looked down at me and said, "And your point is?" "Oh, it's really good. I'm so going to do that again." "Mr. Digby," said Monsieur Martinet, "you are a child." I thought for a second he had sussed me, but he was just being rude. I said, "Anyone else want to go?" and started scrambling up again. When I looked back, Samson too was following me up, and Hassan, and finally even Florida. When we were halfway up, I said, "We could do it from here, or we could carry on to the top, look over the side, and see if we can spot the flag. And if we can't, it doesn't matter. We still have a massive monster dune to dive." Everyone agreed, and we all scrambled and crawled and helped each other up. The last few feet were the worst. I flung myself at the top of the dune and ended up flat on my face. Florida used my legs to help drag herself up. Then so did the others. I wriggled up to the top and peeped over. The whole far side of the dune was in shadow. Not a wavy, blurry shadow, but a deep, cool pool of shadow, like you could drink from it. And there, fluttering away in the middle of it, was a bright white flag. And we could all see that if we tried to walk round the dune, we'd have spent hours in the heat and maybe never found the flag at all. Now we'd be there in a few seconds. "Okay," said Max, "let's do it." We all held hands, took a breath and jumped. Bombs of sand exploded around us as we went faster and faster. I went completely over in an involuntary somersault and it ended up sliding down the last bit head first on my back. I landed more or less at Max's feet. He was holding up the flag and everyone was cheering. "Did you invent this sand dune diving?" asked Hassan. "Because you could make a lot of money from it if you copyright it." "Oh, my dad used to do it with me. Don't your dads do it with you?" "I think he would say it was a distraction," said Samson too. "Mine's too busy," said Hassan. "Mine is too focused," said Max. I looked at Florida and said, "What about your dad?" "Of course," she said, glaring at me. "He does it all the time, don't you?" I'd forgotten that I was her dad. "You have an enjoyable dad then," said Hassan. He looked at me like he thought he might be able to buy me. I just shrugged and took one of the rocket bottles of water out of my backpack and had a sip. Through the plastic, as I was drinking, I could see them all staring at me. "Did none of you bring water?" None of them had. I gave each of them a sip each and said, "I like to come prepared. It's a dad thing." We struggled back up the dune and then dune dived down the other side again, carrying the flag victoriously aloft like a cohort of avenging night elves.